Three, two, one. Welcome to a brand new edition of the Retro Room podcast here on the Ball Is Life Podcast Network, which you can find on SoundCloud, YouTube, Spotify, and Apple Podcasts. I'm joined as always by I am Denny Blanco on both Instagram and Twitter. Denny Blanco, my man, how you doing?
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm doing very well.
All right.
Very well.
And I'm also joined by Gregory Esposito, also known as Espo. Greg, my man, how you doing?
I'm not as good as Denny. I didn't bring that kind of energy, but I'm here.
I'm bringing it. I'm bringing you along. Look. I'm dragging you. Look. Come with me, Espo.
You can follow Denny on both IG and Twitter at I am Denny Blanco. You can find Gregory on Twitter at Espo, Instagram at espo.digital. You can follow me at Randy J. Cruz, RENDY, the letter J, CRUZ. Shout out to our good people at Red Bull for the fridge and the love and support they always show for. Oh, look at you! You can't prepare. At least you got something. No wall art. Espo got NBA Jam in the background. You got a throwback flag. At least you came prepared with something, bro.
keep stabbing me. It's good.
Espo, by the way, he is a Brooklyn Net fan since the day Kyrie and KD signed with the Nets. So just let you know that.
Long time Brooklyn Net fan. Then.
Oh, diehard fan.
Espo, you're right where you belong. Join the club, man. Just beat up on Denny Day. It's all right. Just come on.
Denny bleeds black and white because he's the long diehard Brooklyn Net fan. So Espo, man, I got you on for a very interesting episode. We're talking Sir Charles and the 90's Phoenix Suns. So I had this topic in my head for quite a while. I definitely want to do something on the Suns. Me and Dennis, on the first episode of Retro Room that we did for Ball's Life a year ago, we did the 7 seconds or less Phoenix Suns. Mm-hmm. So we did that time frame, Nash, Amari, D'Antoni, all that good stuff. And I'm like, I want to do another Suns episode, but it's got to be Barkley. I think most would recall that, but may not know a couple ins and outs. Obviously, the Michael Jordan era, and Barkley came to Phoenix, and Kevin Johnson, Dan Marley, Tom Chambers, those guys, the finals run, and we're going to get into all that. But I first want to ask you, what made you become a Phoenix Suns fan? How long have you been a Suns fan? Are you a Arizona native? And what kind of grew you into becoming a fan, but also now you're kind of working with the Suns in some sort of way, correct?
I used to work for the Suns, spent 5 years with the organization as their post-game radio host and ran part of their digital content platform as well. But became a fan right around the time Barkley showed up in Phoenix. I grew up in town, and that dream team run with Sir Charles was right around the time that the trade had happened. The trade happened right before that, and just kind of fell in love with Barkley, fell in love with the game like many in my age range did with that dream team, and just happened to have the guy that was arguably the best in that run in Charles Barkley come to the Valley right after that. And I've loved basketball since, and in particular the Phoenix Suns. And you said you did the 7 seconds or less. I think this is actually the Barkley era is the true heyday of the Suns. I loved 7 seconds or less, but this was where the Phoenix Suns put themselves on the map and stayed there for a decade and a half before the dry spell that they've had as of late.
So, Denny, do you recall how the Suns were prior to Barkley? I did my research. They had a couple playoff appearances. They had a couple All-Stars, Kevin Johnson, as I mentioned, Dan Marley, Tom Chambers. So they were really, good, but they were also missing that piece to kind of get them over the hump. Espo, I'm a throwback guy, so I recall the throwback uniforms, the Cotton Fitzsimmons uniforms, the old Coliseum they used to play at before America West Arena, which the first year Barkley comes there, they were in a brand new building. So just for me, from a nostalgic standpoint, did you ever visit the old arena? Did you have a lot of old memorabilia from that team back in the day?
I did. I never actually saw a game in that arena, but I have been and actually was there the last time the Suns played a scrimmage there. We put it on back in, I think it was 2015. They played a preseason scrimmage in that building, a whole throwback a day to the Madhouse, which was a lot of fun. But yeah, I have a lot of memorabilia from throughout Suns history, from going back to 1968, their first season in the Valley, all the way through the Devin Booker era. So I have stuff across the board, including that Cotton Fitzsimmons era with Chambers and Marley and Mark West and KJ, that whole group. I very fondly remember that. And one of the best things, and I hope I'm not stealing any thunder, I don't know if you're going to go here, but one of the best things is right before they made that Barkley trade, they had lost to, I believe it was Portland in the playoffs. Correct. And as that series is coming to an end, one of the players says to Cotton Fitzsimmons, "We need a Charles Barkley type to take it to the next level." I don't remember the exact player. It may have been Dan Marley. I don't remember exactly who it was, but somebody says that to Cotton Fitzsimmons, and then a handful of months later, the deal actually materializes where they wind up with Charles Barkley. So it was the Suns were always that team that was good but never good enough in that late 80s, early 90s run before Barkley got there, and that was the move that took them over the top.
I was going to ask you. I'm sorry, Randy. I apologize.
No, I was going to say before I get to Barkley, go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to ask you. You mentioning Barkley. So was it Barkley that made you say, "Oh, I like the NBA," or was there a player before Barkley that got you familiar with the NBA? And then Barkley was like, "Oh, Barkley took it over the top."
I think my dad actually got me most interested in sports and the NBA. But Barkley is that first guy I truly remember sitting there and actively watching, and remember that just my fanhood overall kind of coming into focus. I think it was 8 when the trade was made. So it's just that kind of early time frame where you start to become a fan and you remember it. I mean, I remember my dad talking to me about Jordan and watching. He grew up on the East Coast, so he was a Knicks fan. So we watched the Knicks and Ewing in those early 90s. But Barkley was the first guy I remember gravitating towards, owning a jersey of, really making sure I watched every night. So
yeah, I mean, even then, I'm looking at the roster. I was looking at the roster before the trade, and kids, boys and girls, please look at this old roster, and some of these players will be very, very out of this world for you, but for us, we know these players. Cedric Ceballos wasn't bad. No. Cedric Ceballos, Tom Chambers wasn't bad. Jeff Hornacek obviously was good, and then went to Utah, played some good years in Utah. Then obviously you have Dan Marley. We called him Thunder Dan.
That's right.
He played very well in Phoenix. Obviously, so a good run in Miami Heat as well. And then obviously Kevin Johnson. So they had a good group. And to pick up from what you said, that Charles Barkley trade took him over the top.
So before I get the Barkley trade, so before he gets to Phoenix, Espo, in Philly, obviously at the time there's Jordan, there's Ewing, David Robinson, plethora, Elijah, other guys. Isaiah still around. Karl Malone, Stockton, obviously. Where in your mind did you feel Barkley was? Was he a top 5 guy, top 7 guy, top 10 guy? I know he made the dream team, but in your mind, when he goes to Phoenix, are you saying, man, we got a top 5 player, top 3 player? Where were you ranking Barkley prior to the trade?
I think Barkley was probably top 10, top 12 in that range. Phoenix needed him as much as he needed Phoenix is what I think it came down to. Obviously the East back then was very much what the West has been in recent years. A real, for lack of a better term, murderer's row to try to get through. He comes in and he's got the Celtics, who are in the middle of their heyday, the Pistons, all these great Eastern Conference powers. I mean, even the Cavs are pretty good. They can't get over. Obviously, you've got Jordan and the Bulls in those early years. I mean, Barkley is just facing every difficult group that he possibly could. And in Philly, they never really got him the help. I mean, his rookie season was probably the most talented group he played with in Philly, and then they never really get him the help after that. So I think he was probably in that 10 to 12 range before the deal, but that's when he takes it up a notch, obviously, after the trade. But it's interesting because he has his struggles in Philly. He is not a stranger to some controversy in Philly. The main one that a lot of people remember is he went to spit on a fan after an argument, hits a little girl. It's a huge controversy. So he's kind of almost worn out his welcome in Philly as well. And he tells this great story about how he thought he was getting dealt to the Lakers. He was sure he was getting dealt to the Lakers, and this is the season before the trade to the Suns goes down. And he's talking about just how that feels like it's freeing to him. He finds it out, and then it doesn't. It falls through, and how crushing that is. So it wasn't like Philly hadn't been looking to deal him. It wasn't that he didn't want to get out. I think he had run his course in Philly. The Suns with the Cotton Fitzsimmons group, they had come off basically a drug scandal. They had a massive cocaine issue that almost took down the whole franchise in '87. I mean, court issues, like guys went to jail from that team. The entire organization, there was rumors that they might move at the time. That's how bad it was. Jerry Colangelo comes in, buys the team. They land Tom Chambers as the first free agent, unrestricted free agent in league history. And at the year before, they had made a trade to send Larry Nance to Cleveland that gets them Kevin Johnson, gets them Mark West, and gets them the draft pick that becomes Dan Marley. Wow. And that changes things for the Suns in 88, 87, 88 in that time period. But that team could only go so far. They kept running into the Lakers. They would run into Portland. They had difficulty with Portland. There was just, they had a very similar issue like Barkley did. They just couldn't get past these better teams. So that group runs its course, and that's how we wind up with a collision course of Barkley wanting to leave Philly wanting to get rid of him, and Phoenix needing to make some kind of move to actually take that next step and get to the finals.
Rand, I was going to say, Espo, see, this is why I get excited. These types of conversations, right? The education that you just dropped. I love basketball, and I think I know a lot of things. And speaking to Randy, I know Randy's a brain when it comes to basketball. But every time someone comes on this show and we speak to them, I learn something new. So that you explaining the trades between how they get Dan Marley and KJ, how that happened, that is great. What I also want to add too is, which is interesting, and I'm thinking about it now, the '92 Dream Team. Obviously, you has Charles Barkley on there. And the next year, he wins the MVP, right? And I tell the children, I say the best time to see what kind of player you are is when you either A, go on an AAU team, all-star team, or you're invited to a dream team, right? So he gets to sit back and go against Karl Malone and see what's that about. And all of a sudden, and correct me if I'm wrong, he comes back with a jump shot. That, I think, separates him from the year before, because now you can't, they had to change the rule because he could post and he could take his time. Now there's a 5-second rule because you can't take your time down there. Charles Barkley used to take 15 seconds. That fat guy on TNT.
Yeah, and back you down. It'll back you down.
That guy on TNT would take 15 seconds and they wouldn't double him. And he would just take his time and back you down, centers, 7-footers, anybody that was trying to defend him. And then once you had that game along with the jump shot extended to the 3-point line, that's when it exploded and made him a whole new player. So it's Dream Team and him going to MVP, Randy, was a big deal.
No, I agree, and I'm gonna get to that MVP year in a second. So we get the Barkley trade to Phoenix in '92. So while I'm talking, I'm gonna pull this up.
Yeah.
Because I want people to know and understand who he got traded for. And then then there's other parts of this like this kind of weird. Um that makes you think like, wow, really? So we have, if I can read it. So Barkley goes to Phoenix for Jeff Hornacek, Andrew Lang, and Tim Perry, right? So you're thinking like, damn, I'm getting perennial all-star, dream teamer, and all I got to give up is Jeff Hornacek, Andrew Lang, and Tim Perry. But what's also crazy about that, the fact that I don't think you noticed, Dennis, until now, Jeff Hornacek led the team in scoring at 20 points a game.
No. Two things. Number one, a lot of people don't realize Jeff Hornacek was a problem. He was really, he had a jump shot. He had a quick first step. He knew how to pass. And then what's interesting is he said he went to the Sixers. I don't think he played a game for the Sixers. And that's how he ended up in Utah.
Did he, Espo? Did he?
He played one season there. He played
one season.
Those really ugly, the more you know kind of Philly jerseys with the stars and everything. He played. He played one season there. Actually, he's in NBA Jam as a 76er because when he was the coach of the Suns, when I was there, we used to bust his chops. That team was terrible in NBA Jam, so we give him a hard time about it. So yeah, he played 1 year there, but yeah, people don't realize how good he was in Phoenix. I mean, he could score. He was a 3-point shooter, obviously. I mean, most people remember him from Utah, where he spent most of his time just spot up shooting. But that he was a more well-rounded player in Phoenix. Pretty good defensively, could shoot and could pass the ball because he started as a point guard in Phoenix and then moved over to the two guard spot when they got KJ. So he had a lot of skill that he brought to the game. I think people forget that when they see this deal. They just think, oh, it's the guy that shot threes for the Jazz. He was, the third guy with Stockton and Malone, but he was the centerpiece of that Suns team the year before he got traded.
So the part that is interesting to me now, because nowadays you have this thing called an immovable contract. So Charles Barkley, if you read it here, they where to go?
Sixers.
So yeah, so they found it difficult to move Barkley because of his $3.2 million annual salary.
Oh, that's it? The pennies?
That's it.
The pennies?
Yeah, if you look at the line under, though, it was a $14 million salary cap, right? That year, which is crazy in and of itself. You got mid-range guys now. The seventh or eighth man on a team sometimes making $14 million in a year. And that was the entire salary cap in 92, 93. So.
There you go. Man, again, Randy, we can be NBA players now. Now, I can be on the bench for a little bit, practice player, a little light, 10 million, you think?
So now, Espo, did you, again, at the time, now thinking hindsight or retrospect, at the time, I could be like, man, that's it for Barkley. That's nothing. But did you feel like it was an even trade? Did you feel like Philly did not get jerked out of the deal? Do you feel like it was a good trade by both sides? Because obviously, if you get the best player of the deal, everybody seems like you won that deal. But like you said, Hornacek 20 a game. I don't know about Andrew Lang and Tim Perry. So I think
who?
Yeah, Andrew Lang and Tim Perry, but Jeff Hornacek played in Philly 1 year. So how do you think Philly lost or won that deal as well?
I mean, at the time, I think even then it was probably looked at as a little light in terms of what Philly was getting back. Yeah, Hornacek was a nice piece, but you were trading Barkley. But like I mentioned earlier, you got to remember Barkley was a little bit of damaged goods before the trade's made. This is before the dream team happened. So if Philly waits until after that dream team run, I'm guessing they get a lot more for Charles Barkley than they get prior to it, right? And so the Suns make a pretty shrewd move in terms of what they get. And when you look at the blockbusters we see now, you go, wow, that's nothing. I mean, there's not even a draft pick in there. There's nothing in general. But I think if you look back, that's more the norm back in the late 80s, early 90s of deals. It's not a lot of crazy trades. I mean, this is pretty, Philly gets some pieces back. They get rid of a guy that doesn't really want to be there. But in retrospect, when we look at the run that Barkley goes on that next season, the run he has with the dream team, the Suns basically stole him from Philly in the end. And yet Tim Perry, Andrew Lang, they were younger guys that had some promise, but they never lived up to it. So, so at the time, I think even it felt like the Suns were getting a bit of a steal, and just the buzz in Phoenix in landing Barkley you could tell something special was going on just from that. Just how the fans were excited. I mean, I remember there's video clips of back when you could actually do this, the media meeting him at the plane and the fans when he comes out the gate, and it's like there's hundreds of fans there the second he lands in Phoenix, and every media member you could think of is out there. Like it was a huge deal to have Charles Barkley in Phoenix.
And if I'm not mistaken, this goes down before the Dream Team, right?
Correct.
Yep.
Yeah, I believe this happened in late June, and Dream Team obviously doesn't happen until July when the Olympics occur. So he hasn't had any of the magical run that he and Bird and Magic and Jordan go on with the Dream Team. So the price tag is significantly less than if he has that and is the best player on the Dream Team prior to the trade.
Guarantee you, the Sixers don't trade him if he's the MVP, Barkley. That they saw. They're not making that trade. Espo already, they're not making that trade
because he was getting 23 and 11 in his final year at the Phillies. So it's still a pretty good number. They weren't coming amount to wins.
Right.
And maybe that's why he was going hard at Carmelo in those practices in Barcelona. Like, yo, fam, I'm coming to your conference now. You better buckle up, bro.
It was like I said, it's when you have the ability to even not so much play, but even have the to witness, to be in the arena and watch. I would have paid. I would have given my left pinky to be in the room of that practice game between.
Oh, in Barcelona.
Daddy, what's going on? He said, "Yeah, let me get my cup of coffee." I got my cup of coffee. They're like, "Ooh, you're missing. What happened? It looks like you're missing pinky." It's all worth it.
Oh, I wish to.
It was all. I don't have a pinky, but I saw Jordan, Barkley, Ewing, Carmelo. I saw baby Christian Laettner sitting in the corner doing nothing. Magical, just magical. It was just magical.
Well, you got to keep in mind too, Barkley has a chip on his shoulder because in '84 he gets cut from the Olympic team, so he's not on that team. So it comes back. Yes. He comes back, or I don't remember if it was '84 or '88, but he was cut. And then when the Dream Team, it was '84 because they go to the professionals in '92, and that's his first chance to actually be on an Olympic team. So that adds extra fuel for him as well. He's trying to prove that he belongs on this international stage too after he'd been cut in '84. So.
Yeah, and PR wise, he wasn't. We were mentioning before. PR wise, he wasn't the I would say he wasn't Jordan in terms of PR, if you will. Okay. Oh yes, here we go. Yeah, that's when Magic was talking to us, to letting us know what was going on. The smack.
Yo, I swear to you, the way Magic presents his story.
Nah,
Carl, you better go get him, Carl.
That's how I hear it and see it. He's talking during the whole game because the concept is I can't let this fool Jordan think he could just come in and take over the league without me letting him know I'm the big dog. But let me tell you, boy. He said, yeah. Larry Bird looked at him and was like, yo, bro, it's a new sheriff in town.
Larry Bird was chilling on the sideline, laying on his back.
Yeah, he's on his back. He looked up. He looked up at Magic at one time out. He looked at Magic and said, bro, there's a new sheriff in town.
Oh, man. I wish I was around for that, man.
Left Pinky, go back into the time machine. Get the flux
Pinky.
capacitor going. We get the flux capacitor going, and we go back in the future. Go back to 92. Watch that game.
So, as Danny mentioned earlier, Barkley wins the 1993 MVP with Jordan still around. A lot of high-profile athletes still trying to get a championship, but in that MVP season, so Barkley goes 20 on a round off, 26, 12, and 5. Phoenix has the best record in the NBA, 62 and 20 that year. Trivia, Espo and Denny, only one other team in that season won 60 games aside from the Phoenix Suns. Do you know who that team was?
Seattle.
New York Knicks.
Now listen, I was not a Knicks fan at this time, so I want to be clear, but still it's kind of weird. Like, man, the Knicks they can win 60 at some point in time, right, Denny? We can get there again.
Maybe. Maybe.
over a 2-season period, yeah, you guys can get to 60 in New York.
Look at Espo. Woo!
Anyways, how important was it for Barkley to win the MVP this year? Obviously Jordan could be the MVP every single season. But how different was it for somebody else aside from Jordan in his prime to win the MVP? Because Barkley becomes the first one. I know Malone becomes later on, but Barkley becomes the first guy to win an MVP in Jordan's height of his career. How important was that for the Suns, for him, and for the entire NBA?
I think it was important for the league in particular because it adds an unbelievable amount of drama going into that finals. And it felt like, I mean, as good as the Knicks were, the Knicks, you kind of knew they were going to lose to Jordan in the playoffs. It just always seemed to be the case. So it felt like these two teams were on a collision course with each other. And there were a lot of people who felt that it was more Jordan fatigue than Barkley winning the MVP, because just voters just got tired of saying, yeah, this MJ guy is the best, but coming off of the Dream Team run where Barkley's the best, arguably the best player in Barcelona, and they have that run, comes right into this new town in Phoenix and captures everybody's imagination in Phoenix, but also nationwide, because this is a team that plays a fun brand of basketball. You've got the East that's beating up on each other. It's, it's 90, 88 is are these games. And then you've got the Suns who they're run and gun. They're scoring 110, 120 points a game. And Barkley is helping run this fast paced offense. It really excited people across the country. And I think that's why he winds up winning this MVP. You could argue, was he truly the best player? No, we all know that Michael Jordan in the end for his entire prime was the best player to step on a court. But when people want a different storyline, I think Barkley provided that. This Suns team provided that. And it was must-watch television when they were on a national Sunday game on NBC. Everybody was tuning in because Barkley had the personality. He was playing at an all-time high, and the Suns were entertaining as hell in that time frame. So I think that all coming together is why Barkley winds up getting the MVP. Then,
Listen, I piggyback off that. There was a new brand of basketball. Yeah, of course, in the East, 89, 72. You got guys clotheslining each other, pushing each other down the court, while in the West Coast they're running and gunning. Which brings me to my next point. Charles Barkley winning the MVP in '93. Now, I just replay this in my head, and I say to myself, if they had called Charles Barkley and told him, "You're about to win in '93 most valuable player award for MVP. I'd have told Charles. I said, Charles, tell him you don't want it.
Really?
You know why? I'd have told Charles, you don't want it. You know why you don't want it? Because down the line, you're going to run into Michael Jordan for the championship. And he's going to use that fuel to come at you. And it's going to be overwhelming, and you're not going to be able to withstand the avalanche. That's what I told him. Same thing with Karl Malone. I'd have told Karl Malone. Now I'm looking at the voting. 93. Did my research. Look at this. Charles Barkley, obviously. Who was second in 93 voting MVP? Who do you think was second? Gentlemen. Ewing was fourth.
Oh, damn, I noticed. Either Robinson or Olajuwon.
Hakeem was second. And MJ was third.
Wow. Jordan third.
So understand that, Espo. You're Michael Jordan. You are the NBA. And you know, you're eating breakfast in the morning and your little kid brings you a paper. You look at the paper and it says, the voting has been finished, finalized. Charles Barkley wins MVP. Jordan, you were third in voting.
Mm-hmm. It reminds me of that meme from the doc where it was, and then I took that personally. Like that's that was the moment where Jordan was like, and that's when I'm going to kick everybody's ass.
Pretty much, because it happened to Karl Malone in '97, so we know what was going on. Did you freeze, Denny? Oh my God! I thought you were so shocked.
I froze. Was like this.
Yeah, exactly. Oh man!
I'm not in Texas, and I got bad weather reception. They got snow down there. I'm in New York, but no, not for nothing. Jordan's a piece of work because he used that as motivation and fuel to win those championships in those years.
So in this 1993 playoff run, real quick, so they go down 0-2 against the Lakers, the team that Barkley thought he was gonna get traded to. Imagine that. They come back 3 in a row, and back then when it was a 5-game first round series, which I still miss. I think they should go back to that.
They should go back to that. It's about money. I know it's about money.
I know that.
Yeah.
They get the San Antonio Spurs in round 2. David Robinson, I think Avery or Sean Elliott. I don't know if they got there by that time.
That sounds right.
So they go to 6. And we all know the image and the video of Barkley winning not only making a game winner, but ending the series on a game winner in San Antonio, game 6. What do you recall most from that shot? Did you see it live, or did you what do you most recall from that shot?
If you don't mind taking a step back to that Lakers series, down 0-2, Paul Westphal, who recently passed away,
rest in peace,
goes out right after they lose game 2 and says, we're going to win the next 3. We're going to win Tuesday. We're going to win Thursday. We're going to win Saturday. Everybody's going to say what a great series it was. It has been, just not for us. And then they go out, and I was talking to Barkley, Chambers. I did a whole series on that guarantee, and they all said that took the pressure off of us. Like he knew that was going to put the pressure on him because he made the guarantee, and that we could just go out there and play. And that was the moment you knew this was a truly special season, because they win 3 in a row against the Lakers to go into that Spurs series, and you go, now something special's going on here. We know in Phoenix something truly unique's going on. So you get to game 6, and there's a handful of seconds left. I think there's about 15, and the Suns get the ball, and they clear it out. It's Barkley at top of the key with Robinson on him, and I'll never forget it. He spins the ball. He's sitting there watching, and he's just killing clock. And I remember watching it live as a kid, and you go, he's gonna make this. Like I have no doubt. Here it is. He's 8 seconds left. He's spinning that ball, just staring, dribble, cans it, and then he just runs down the court. Yep. And you knew he was going to hit that shot. Like what guy sits there as calm and as cool as he is, spins that ball, staring at David Robinson in the face, and just cans it like that. That's how good he was that season. That's how automatic that jump shot was. There was no doubt. You just knew they were going to win when they put the ball in his hands with 8 seconds. And I'll never forget that moment. That is one of my top sports moments ever, is just watching that and just remembering how exciting that moment was.
Espo, that was terrible. Terrible defense.
Yes.
by David Robinson and the Spurs, mind you. I don't have the information on how much Charles scored that game. But let me be clear. Usually the last shot that Jordan takes, everyone knows it's going to Jordan. It's just a matter of where and when he's going to catch it and how he's going to catch it. If you think about it, really, how many times has Jordan actually caught the ball, held it, wait 10 seconds, and then attacked?
None.
You can't think, because it's always a matter of catch, go, catch, because they're gonna come with a double team. Okay. So now I'm watching this last 20 seconds, and I see Charles Barkley, and he's at the top of the key. He's like maybe 4 or 5 steps behind the 3-point line, and the 3-point line is deep. Okay, this is the old 3-point line. So I'm sitting there watching, and he's just sitting there, and I'm like, David, why aren't you making him dribble? Because you're dictating how he's going to move. You're dictating. But if you let him come at you, now you have to guess. So I'm sitting back, and then Mr. Lucas, Coach Lucas, that fit, Coach Lucas?
Lucas was the coach.
You don't send anyone at him. You don't send an additional person at him.
And he's the MVP of the year.
This is my problem, Randy.
I mean, what player has the chance to spin the ball in his hands before? I mean,
LeBron.
It's
now,
insane.
Thanos. LeBron, aka Thanos. Right now, LeBron, aka Thanos, is doing that. And even then, when Randy, I sit and watch games with Randy, and I'll just start throwing things, and I'm just like, "What are you doing? Attack him!" Yeah.
I send double, triple team. Let anybody else on that court beat you.
Exactly.
You do not let the MVP take that kind of an easy shot.
Exactly.
A few things about that play that I always notice. I always make a joke about it. Barkley dribbled right the whole time.
Yeah.
And like he went to the left, dribbling with the right.
Yeah.
And I'm like, Dave Robinson, what are you doing? Like, he forced Barkley left. He went left, dribbling right. How does that happen? Like, yo, how does that happen?
And here's the thing. Like, okay, guys. Like, every single time I see a center, a player who's over 6'10", on the wing, I get nervous. Every single time, especially when he's on a wing with a guy that can dribble. I get nervous. I don't see it ending well. Never. Even off of high pick and rolls, I always scream, fight over the screen. I can't stand these switches because it always ends up with a big man looking at the guard and saying, "Oh my God, what do I do?" Or David Robinson looking at Charles Barkley for a couple minutes and saying, "Oh my God, what do I do?" Now, yes, even David Robinson down in the post with Olajuwon. Olajuwon ate him for breakfast.
Right.
Delicious. Ate for breakfast. Right. But at least he's down there and he's around the rim. He's home. On the wing, he's on an island. He's on Revis's island. You got to bring him back. You got to bring him back from the island.
But there's not even a pick that gets this matchup. This is what they decide to go with, and he's just staring at Barkley. They kind of, he's staring at Barkley the way that if you had gotten your significant other a dustbuster for Valentine's Day, that they would stare at you like, what did you do? Like,
nothing.
Just befuddled. It doesn't know what the heck is going on. And then he hits a jumper. Like, it makes no sense at all.
Yeah, Rob is going to be on some highlight screens for a very, very long time.
To answer Denny's question about how much did Barkley have in Game 6? So before we move on, 28, 21, 4 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks.
Hold on. Hold on. I had hair before he said that. Now you see, I had hair before he said that. Now I have no hair. Like I need some Espos to put right here. You wait. You said he got 28 points, 20 boards,
21 rebounds,
at 6'4".
Right. At power forward. 4 assists, 4 steals, 2 blocks. And to be fair, David Robinson, 22, 14, 5, 2, and 4 blocks.
Those stats mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
Not but because he didn't win.
Mm-hmm.
He's a 7-footer.
And Barkley's 6'4".
Barkley 6'4". And if I'm guessing, I don't think I gotta rewatch that game. I don't know if David was on him just that one time. I'm going to assume it wasn't just one time.
I would like to see that game. I haven't seen it in a long time. Yeah. Probably Espo has seen it.
But they had no answers, and the only hope and prayer they had was David Robinson, and you saw what happened.
Mm-hmm.
Man.
So Espo, probably one of my favorite series of all time. We get to the conference finals, Seattle, Phoenix, 1993. The winner goes to the finals. On the east side, you got Chicago and New York trying to go to the finals. This one goes 7. Sean Kemp, one of my favorites of all time. That right there, obviously there's probably more series after that, but you want a true essence of a game, of a 7-game series to go to the finals. I don't think you could find one better than Seattle and Phoenix. So where do you rank this conference finals for you, for Suns fans? And when looking back at it, we're almost 28 years ago to that time. What do you most recall from that Suns Sonics Western Conference Finals in 1993?
I just remember it was a grind. I mean, they just kept going back and forth. It was such a good series, and I don't remember the other time the Suns went to the finals in 1976. They had beat the defending champion Golden State Warriors, I believe, in the Western Conference Finals that year. And I've had people tell me that was pretty unbelievable. But to me, this is the best playoff series the Suns have ever played, and that they win it in the way they do in Game 7 to punch your ticket to the finals. It was unbelievable. And then you add in the fact that you've got young Gary Payton, and you've got young Sean Kemp, as you mentioned. Eddie Johnson's on that team, who's a former Sun from those early 90s runs, that is shooting great in this series against his former team as well. You've got George Karl versus Paul Westphal. Like, it is a heck of a series. And I'll tell you, there were more than a handful of times during it that Suns fans thought, oh, it's been fun, but I don't know that we're getting out of this one in the end. But Charles Barkley wills them to victory. I mean, in this series, as much as any in the entire playoff, he just battles. And Sean Kemp, obviously no slouch to have to battle against. These are two of the best power forwards in the game. And obviously Kemp significantly more athletic than Barkley. I mean, Barkley's never the tiniest guy. He's never in the best shape in terms of his weight or anything during any part of his career. And Sean Kemp is, at this point in Seattle, one of the most athletic in the game, and he's night in, night out battling Kemp on both ends of the court. I think this is just a testament to how unbelievable Barkley was that season.
Let me tell you guys something, Randy Espo. You look at this roster. Look at this Supersonics roster. Okay, an argument can be made that Supersonics roster was better than that Phoenix roster. An argument can be made, man, because Eddie Johnson, is that the same Eddie Johnson that was in Houston?
Yes.
Thank you. Had a gun on him, could shoot from deep, okay? And he was tall. He was like 6'7", okay? So you had Eddie Johnson. Don't get me started about Sean Kemp. You had Derek McKee, who could play defense, was long, athletic. You had Nate McMillan, who was a defensive defensive player, could lock up your point guard from the 94 feet. Obviously, Sam Perkins, Ricky Pierce, and Gary Payton. 2 years deep, Gary Payton. Oh my God. Like, so they were, I could see that being a very, very great series because you have great players all up and down both rosters. It was phenomenal.
Yeah, and I think the Suns wind up winning because they have home court in the end. And Game 7 at home, obviously a huge factor as to why they prevail in the series.
Yep.
Then do you want to know what? Matter of fact, Espo, do you recall what Barkley had in Game 7?
Oh, I don't. I don't. I know it was huge.
You're supposed to know this, Espo. You're supposed to know this.
37-20, 37-27, and 2.
I think it was 40 something. I think he's
44 and 24.
Yeah, I gotta say 44. Yeah, he just had a crazy game.
See, and this is what gets me, right? When you see that, we watch our TNT guys every Tuesday and Thursdays, and they're talking, they're talking to these youngsters, and Shaq is like, if it's not 26, 11, and 5, I'm not talking to you. And guys are these youngsters are getting upset, and I'm like, you guys are playing in a league that they don't, you have to, like, they played in a league where you have to clothesline someone to get a foul. Now it's a league where you just foul. Okay, so it's very interesting to just see where we are with the game, where it's just like, no, these numbers that Charles Barkley were putting up, being a power forward playing in a centers league at the time. Centers league. It's a centers league. You got a lot of centers that dominated, and obviously Jordan's involved with that. But you got a guy who's 6'4", dominating, taking the team to the championship. You're probably not going to see that again.
Barkley would have been a tiny shooting guard in today's game at 6'4", and he's playing power forward in the toughest era in basketball in the late 80s, early 90s. Like that's the craziest thing to me. And for as much as Shaq talks on that show, he had all the physical tools, right? Barkley did not. Barkley had to go out there and work harder than anybody at his size and be smarter in terms of getting those boards, playing defense than anybody. I mean, people forget that because most know Charles Barkley as TNT Charles Barkley, but what he was able to do on the court is truly unbelievable.
It'd be like Draymond averaging 20, 15, and 5.
Imagine that.
It would be that's what it would be like, because you're saying, well, this guy at his height and his weight can't possibly average those numbers, and this guy was doing it in a league where it was way more aggressive and way more better players in my eyes.
Before I get to the finals, real quick, going back to San Antonio Game 6 winner, when he makes that, it takes it and makes it. In your mind, and help me out, did you think that Barkley could be the guy that you can go to and take that final shot? Even back in Philly, I don't recall most of his Philly days, but if you were getting him, he's a guy that can help you get to the playoffs and finals. Did you ever look at him as a guy that can take the final shot, not only take it, but also make it?
Yeah, there was a moment earlier in that season. They're in Portland. They're down. I think they're down 1. There's 0.4 seconds on the clock, right? And they wind up drawing up this play where Oliver Miller throws the inbounds off the backboard, and Cedric Ceballos kind of fakes that he's going to go for it because the clock doesn't start till somebody touches the ball. And Barkley got it with 0.4 and just flipped it and made it. And from then on, you just kind of knew you're in good hands with Chuck. He's gonna get that shot. So that's why when he's sitting there and he's just staring at Robinson in that shot, you knew, Suns fans knew he was gonna make it. Like there was no doubt. Like this is the play, and this is completely insane the way he hits his shot. Oliver Miller off the backboard, and then Chuck just flips it, right? And everybody in Portland thinks, well, that's not, it doesn't count. It hit the backboard. Clock should have started. And no, Westphal, who drew up the play, knew the rules so well that he knew that the clock doesn't start. Everybody else thought it did, thought it was over, and Barkley just makes an unbelievable shot there. That was the moment where you knew it. Like Sensabalos here is like explaining to Strickland, yeah, this is why it counts, right? And it just unbelievable. And that was the moment where you kind of went, yeah, any shot. If I'm going in the last second or less than a second, Charles Barkley's my guy.
So we get to Charles Barkley's only appearance in the NBA Finals, 1993, reigning MVP, best record in the league. But he goes up against the team that's trying to get a three-peat, the team of the 90s, Chicago Bulls, Jordan at his highest peak. I think 93 Jordan is the peak of Jordan. And you could tell by the final stats, 41 a game. Come on, man. As a Suns fan, and be real with me, did you feel like, man, listen, I know it's Jordan and Pippen and Phil Jackson, but we have a shot to win this series, make it competitive. But when they go down 0-2, you're like, oh, shit. Like,
oh, yeah.
I don't know, man. I don't know about this one.
Yeah. And there's this, I think it was an interview that ran in game one of the finals that NBC did. And Barkley says something to the extent of, I spoke with God and he told me we're going to win the title. Right. Well, and that's how everybody in Phoenix kind of believed. It just felt like it was their year. And those first two games happen. And you go, oh crap. Yeah, they are playing Michael Jordan and the Bulls, aren't they? Maybe this isn't. But then game 3 is that triple overtime game, right? I'm pretty sure game 3 winds up being the triple overtime that the Suns get the win in Chicago and make it 2-1. And then Bulls win that fourth game, and you're sitting at 3-1, and you go, well, maybe there's still a chance, and Barkley does the famous, we're going to save Chicago because they're going to burn it down if they win the title. So, everything's boarded up, but we're going to save the city because we're going to win tonight. And they win in Chicago. So they're coming home 3-2, and you're thinking that this could legitimately happen. Like, that's when you got kind of the faith back. But man, those first two games were such a punch in the gut. And I think it was for the team too, Barkley included. That was the wake-up call where it was like, yeah, this has been a magical season, but this isn't going to be an easy ending. You're going to have to figure it out. And they obviously don't wind up figuring it out in the end, but those first two games were extremely tough.
Denny?
Listen, oh, man. Like I said before, the finals, Jordan, it's tough, man. And then he's sitting back every game, like looking at you. It's like they really voted this guy MVP. Like they really forgot who's wearing, like, who's buying my sneakers and who's really about this life. It was unfortunately, Dan Marley, shout out to you. You had no hope. Neither did KJ. There was really nothing you could possibly do to slow Michael Jordan down, which nobody really had answers, but he knew. I mean, he knew he could take the heart from Danny Ainge, Dan Marley, or KJ whenever he felt like it. So it was just a matter of time. Charles Barkley could only do so much with the players that he had. He was just going against the Bulls, and the Bulls was a different animal. And then you could put Jordan, obviously, on KJ. So that was the equalizer too. KJ, I obviously had to deal with Gary Payton and so forth and so on. But 48 minutes of Jordan, I wouldn't want that as a point guard. Nope.
But Denny, the game I'm showing now, which is a 3 overtime thriller. For those who have never seen this game, go ahead and watch it because it's fucking incredible. So Espo, as you're watching this, Dan Marley goes crazy. Game 3 overtimes in Chicago. Chicago's up 2-0. They get this victory. Are you feeling like, hey man, I think we could do this? And overall, what's your, in retrospect, what is your overall feeling of this game 3 overtime victory for Phoenix?
To me, it kind of is just the example of what this team was. It would have been really easy to pack it in after have gone down 2-0 and you're in Chicago and first overtime, that second overtime, it would have been really easy to just go, you know what, we fought really hard, but in the end, the Bulls were the better team. And no, they kept just clawing back anytime they'd fall behind in that game. And it was crazy. What that game was like. I remember the entire city of Phoenix basically let out a giant sigh after that third overtime, and the Suns finally pull it out because we were all exhausted. I can't imagine what the players felt because I think Kevin Johnson played all but like 2 minutes of that game, if I remember correctly. It was an insane amount he plays. I mean, we were all exhausted, and the players, I can only imagine how much how they felt. That's one of the most iconic NBA Finals games ever, and I think the point where you go, Barkley may have been the best individual guy Jordan faced in a finals. Like it was two guys at the peak of who they were, going back and forth. I mean, if you remove the the supporting cast and you're just looking at the two stars in those finals, I think that was probably the best matchup Jordan ever faced, was another guy in his pure prime, just going at him the way Barkley did.
So in your mind, not to go sideways, but do you feel within Chicago's 2 3-peats that the best team, obviously Jordan ain't go to no game 7, but do you feel like the Phoenix Suns was the best team that he ever faced in the NBA Finals? I know Utah back-to-back game 6s. They had LA, Seattle, and Portland, but do you feel Phoenix was the best competition Jordan ever had in the finals?
It's tough.
I can answer that.
I don't know. You look at that Lakers roster. I mean, that Lakers roster was pretty good. The Chaz are unbelievable. Even Seattle when he faces them. So I think it's tough to say that the Suns were the best out of that group. But I will say that I do think individual wise, Barkley was the best that he faced in any finals.
So Denny, you disagree. So if it ain't Phoenix, who is it? Utah?
No, out of his mouth, talking about Jordan, toughest team he's faced.
Or Seattle?
It's Seattle. Out of his mouth, it's Seattle. And
I don't know, man. I don't know. They went up 3-0. Like, okay, well, real quick.
They lost in 6, though, right? They lost in 6.
No, Seattle lost, but Chicago went up 3-0.
Yeah, I understand. You think going up 3-0 is like, oh, this is the most dominant team. Mm-hmm. I mean, they sweep, it's one thing, but you go up 3-0 and then end up losing, 4-2, for example. I mean, right. I just know physically, Seattle Supersonics, when it came to playing the Bulls, it was just a matchup of hell. You had Rodman, Kemp, and let's be clear, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. If Seattle actually put Peyton on Jordan from the game 1, it'd have been a different conversation. But because maybe George said we got to save Peyton for offense, I could see the trade-off. But no possessions whatsoever. Like, I could see you putting him on a couple possessions, taking them off, but no possessions at all. Mm-hmm. And by the time they figured it out, the formula, they won 2 games. By that time, it was all over. So, I think out of all those, Utah, Phoenix, when it comes to the Bulls, I think the Seattle Supersonics had something for them, for sure. Not the Suns.
So Greg, I know this is probably your most hated highlight of all time. So,
oh no, floating.
But talk to me about this, because we know John Paxson made the shot, but I think there's other factors that go on. So look, Jordan is the only one that scored points for Chicago in the whole entire quarter. You know what I'm saying? So like this part right here, This is a shot. So before that, Jordan gets like a wide open layup, and Paxson's wide open. And what happens here?
It's bad defensive rotation, right? Because if you look at it, when it's Danny Ainge that collapses on Horace Grant to to try to stop him there. There's no point because they're in the timeout before they're saying no threes, right? There's audio of them talking about don't give up a three. And Danny Ainge just instinctually collapses rather than guarding John Paxson, where there's just not an excuse. You guard John Paxson there so he does not beat you. You take a tie because you're at home and you likely win the overtime, right? And that drove me nuts. Is there just the poor defensive rotation there that cost them? Like, that's why Paxson hits that shot, is because they weren't smart defensively and they were coming out of a timeout when they did it too. Like, it's not like Danny Ainge is going to collapse on Jordan. It's Horace Grant. Like, and if he gets the layup, so be it. But you let John Paxson get a wide open three, and that's why Jordan never went to a Game 7 in the finals, because the Suns couldn't rotate on defense. That should have been a Game 7 in that series.
I was wondering who that five was they had, because obviously they had Dumas, which was long. They had a couple of guys who were long, so I don't know if he was in foul trouble at the time. But yeah, him being out there in general. When we say defense, we don't say Danny Ainge.
No.
So for him to be out there on a defensive, sequence just throws me for a loop. If we need him for a 3-point shot and we have the ball on offense, yes, he's out there. But defensively, that's why it's just like you're putting him in a position to fail. Yes.
I mean, you set it up for failure. You're right. There should have been, I believe it's him, Oliver Miller, KJ Barkley, and Dan Marley that are out there.
No, you keep everybody except Ainge. Like I said, either Dumas may have been in foul trouble.
Not again.
The thing for me too is if you're going to double Jordan, I understand it because it's the best guy in the game. Instinctually, that's what you're kind of programmed to do, is double him. But the fact that it was Horace Grant and you're not focusing on the wide open guy behind the arc, because the guy on that roster that's going to shoot the three is John Paxson. Like, you knew if they were going for the win, John Paxson, if it wasn't MJ, was taking that shot, and they leave him wide open. That one kills me to this day. It drives me nuts.
So the one question, then he comes back, I'll get him back on. But the one question I asked him prior, that I said, I gotta ask Espo this question. So many great guards in the 90s that don't get talked about as much. We know Kidd, Peyton, Stockton, but Mark Price, Mahmoud, and I think Kevin Johnson is one of those guards. I know he's all, he made the finals. He's an all-star. He bunked on the Hakeem Olajuwon, which I get to in a second. But do you feel that Kevin Johnson is one of the most underrated point guards we've ever had?
Yes. Obviously health issues is why he had hamstring injuries constantly. But if you go back and look at the early 90s and you compare some of during Magic's run in the early 90s, and you look at KJ's stats, it's not that unbelievably different between the two of them. And I think people forget how good KJ was, not only at scoring but passing. He was unbelievable at getting assists, but he could score as well, and he was damn good defensively. And so I think he's forgotten in a lot of ways, just because those injury issues cost him a lot of time and cost him some of his prime athletically. And going into that 93 finals, he's not fully healthy either. People forget that, but he's not fully healthy in those finals as well. So he's a forgotten quantity when it comes to those early 90s guards. And it's unfortunate, because I really think when you look at his career in totality, he probably should be a Hall of Famer, but he just can't quite get over that threshold to get in based on just some of that missed time.
Denny Blanco, KJ, underrated. Agree?
KJ for about 1 or 2 years was one of the top 3 or 2 point guards in the NBA. 2 or 3 years, and I'm talking about what you're seeing Dame Lillard do minus the 3-point 30 shot. The 3-point shot from 30 feet. Minus that, KJ was Dame Lillard. Could go to the hole, go around you, could shoot, could create his own shot, put him on the wing, he'll get you 2 points. He was dunking over 7-footers. So people for 2 or 3 years, KJ was that guy. Once again, Espo put it, Espo touched on it. Injuries messed him up. And I'm sure it affected his Hall of Fame status, because maybe if he gets a couple more years, he's a Hall of Famer. And a lot of the times people forget there's a couple of guards that slipped through the cracks during that time because there were just so many. Mark Price and Kevin Johnson are 2 that slip through the cracks all the time, and people forget how great they were.
Oh, he had that crossover too. Like everybody remembers Tim Hardaway's, but KJ had a heck of a crossover too. He was just when he was healthy, he was unbelievable.
You didn't want to see him. Nope.
So speaking of KJ, we get to, and I probably run through these things real quick. So we get to 94, 95. I'm bulking these together. So they Phoenix gets back to the playoffs. They go make one more run at it. They're in the conference semis against the Houston Rockets in both 94 and 95. This is the back-to-back Rockets championship years. No Michael Jordan in the NBA. So everything is different. So pretty much everybody has a shot to win the title. So real quick, Espo, when Jordan retires, you're more like, damn, I'm going to miss him. I'm more like, yeah, my sons can now win a championship.
Hell no, I wasn't like, damn, I'm going to miss him. I was like, thank God, we actually have a chance now. Like, you're coming off of what he did to Phoenix in that 92-93 finals, where in the 93 finals, where he just destroys them. I'm like, thank God, finally, let somebody else win a title. Never imagining that somebody else was going to be the Rockets back to back. Those really, when you look at it, that should have been at least one of those years a Suns title. I think it's 94. They're up 3-1 in that series against Houston, right?
Mario Ellie.
No, I think it's
is it the reverse?
Reverse. 94 was 2-0. They were up.
Yes.
And then 95, they were up 3-1. So the question I got for you, Espo, remind me and Dennis of how the Suns were in these 2 years. What was the differences between these two and the finals team from the year prior, and why they just couldn't get over the hump against the same team in the same freaking round?
Well, they had refined the roster slightly. Richard Dumas isn't there because of off the court issues. So they had tinkered with some of the supporting cast. They'd added, not that this is a great name, but they had added Joe Klein at that center position. They were, you got to remember, the Suns in the 90s were in a constant search for a center. They because this is the heyday of Olajuwon, Robinson, all these big guys, Ewing, all these big centers, right? And they're constantly chasing after one to try to put with Barkley in this group, and they never quite find that guy. But really, what happens in these series is, and I hate it because he was my guy and a large part of what we're talking about. But Barkley doesn't take it overly serious from everything I've heard. He's out partying hard. He's coming in not as focused as he did that previous year, especially in the playoffs, and it really costs him. I think it's in one of the game sevens. I get these. It's funny that you combine him and talking about it, because memory wise, these two series just get slammed together and become one giant amount of disappointment, because Suns are up 3-1 in 95. They should win. Barkley has free throws in a game. It may have been game 5 to actually close out the series, and he can't make them. It's just disappointment after disappointment, and they can't seem to figure out anything about Houston. In particular, Olajuwon, they can't stop, which isn't just them. I mean, that's a lot of people in this day and age, but they have no answer for it, and they can't get over the hump. And I blame Barkley's focus in for a lot of it, because if they get past Houston in either one of those years, they win the title. They are just as good as Houston, if not better, but they can't get over that hurdle. I think they easily win one of those titles, and it changes everything about the Suns and the way people look at the franchise, especially locally. I mean, it's 53 years without a title. That 3-year run from 92 through this 95, one of those should have been a title. That was everybody still to this day looks back, and as much as we love 7 seconds or less, that group was the closest that Phoenix got to an actual title.
So before Denny goes, so 94, let's just say hypothetically they get to the finals and they get the New York Knicks. 95, they get the young Orlando Magic. So you feel like, hey, listen, we got to get one of these. That New York Phoenix could have been real tough. Orlando might have been the opportunity. Like, hey, they're young. I know they're athletic, Shaq and Penny. You saw what Houston did to them. Just imagine what the Suns would have did to them. So you feel, I know you said one of those, but which one do you really feel strongly about? Like, Suns should have won this particular year, but they did not.
Should have been 94. They would have beaten the Knicks. I mean, I think they have no answer at center that I think could have played Shaq in the way that Olajuwon could. Ewing was not quite the same beast as Shaq. I mean, Shaq was, he's tearing down rims in those first few years in the league. I think they would have struggled with him at center, but I think they would have found a way to beat the Knicks. It probably would have been a 7-game series. It probably would have been knockout dragout, because if you remember in 92, 93, Suns and Knicks had a giant brawl in the regular season. Like, just ridiculous. Like, Greg Anthony is out injured, comes off the bench and squares up Kevin Johnson, starts taking swings. Like, this is Malice at the Palace level kind of fight. So I think it would have been an insane finals, but I think the Suns probably win that. I don't think they beat Orlando just because of the kind of beast that Shaq was. I think Houston with Olajuwon had a very particular way to go at that Orlando team that the Suns wouldn't have been able to. I think the Knicks probably would have been in 94 would have been that team that the Suns beat.
What do you think, Denny? What do you think?
Man, I think Jordan gave everyone an out, and they didn't take it. And, they should have jumped on it. The arguments can be made either way when it comes to when Phoenix had their best chance of winning. I mean, seriously, wait a minute. Let me just pause for a second and gather my thoughts on this video that's playing right now. Yeah, when you match it up, Malice Palace. I mean,
well, there's a second wave that comes here though. It gets nuts here at the end.
Wow. That's KJ and
KJ and Greg Anthony, and Greg Anthony is wearing the worst shirt in the history of basketball.
Okay,
it's a nautical themed shirt, but it spills into it starts spilling in. It gets pretty crazy.
So Greg Anthony in regular street clothes, is fighting
Kevin Johnson.
Yeah, you don't see it in the video, but he comes off the bench and squares up and swings at KJ in this fight.
He's going to the field. He should have been. And to be honest, I don't even think he should have got 70 games for that alone. I don't even think he got 70.
No, they hardly got suspended at all for that.
Yeah, that was wild. But the original point was, Michael Jordan gave them 2 years, 2 to 3, right? 2 to 3, couple of years, and the best chance Phoenix had was up 3. Is it 3-1? Up 3-1 against Houston. Is that right?
Yeah, 95. Yeah.
When Mario Ellie kiss of death.
Yep.
That was their best. Mind you, was Phoenix home? Phoenix was home court. Yes, because Houston had to go. Houston had to go on the road. So I mean, that was their best chance, and unfortunately, Charles got allegedly a little happy, and wasn't too prepared. But that goes to show. And then it just seems to hit Charles Barkley because he goes to Houston, and they're right there, and John Stockton gives him a kiss of death and sends him home. So it's damn, Charles, damn.
I'm trying to get that video right now.
Damn, Charles, damn. I mean, the Mario Ellie John.
The kiss of death from Ellie. Oh, that's one of those moments that Suns fans still talk about. You know, that the kiss of death is a cringe moment here in Phoenix. It's just, you know, KJ doesn't hit that free throw. You get Ellie with this shot and just looks at the bench and
I don't even know on that. See, Randy, I don't know if you can pull that back on that outlet. How does that outlet even happen? Like, okay, the clock is dead. So at this point, they made the shot, so it's dead ball. So how do they get that ball to Ellie? Okay, yeah. So I don't think it's going to show. It looks like it's a fast break. Maybe.
Yeah, he misses the free throw. They bring it up court, and they just happen to catch Ellie there. I think it's actually Robert Horry that makes the pass.
Yeah,
which is another guy that continues to hurt the Suns over the years.
And the center, which looks like they put a center in to guard Olajuwon, and he decides to just sit behind Olajuwon and let Mario shoot that three.
Yeah, it may have been Danny Shays that they brought in, one of the numerous white centers that couldn't do anything. They brought in him, Joe Klein. Yeah, I think that's who it is. He just sits there on Olajuwon as Ellie destroys them.
And you know what's crazy to kind of tie in the Knicks. When you look back at it, I feel like the 95 year when Phoenix does not get it done, that's the window. And on the flip side, when New York loses to Indiana in Game 7 with the Pat Ewing finger roll botch, I'm thinking like, oh, that's it. Because now Pat Riley leaves. It's a whole new coach, a whole new regime. It's like you just kind of felt that small window era is over for both New York and Phoenix.
Well, they're kind of the different sides of the same coin. You know, the Knicks are the Eastern Conference Suns from then. Both of those teams have a pretty damn good argument that they were title worthy and they just couldn't close the deal. And that's why Ewing and Barkley are in that, never won a championship club where they get hampered with that when people look back at their greatness. So.
And that's okay. I like that argument. I like hearing it's a hard argument when you're in a room with people with rings.
Yes.
When you're not in a room with people with rings and you're a Hall of Famer, it's got the guys that keep their mouths shut, being disrespectful, because Charles Barkley is not one of you. A lot of people can't talk to Charles Barkley or Shaq or no rings. So Charles Barkley, Karl Malone, John Stockton, Reggie Miller, these are guys, and maybe future going forward, they may not win it. They may not win a chip. But let me tell you something. He got Hall of Fame written all over him.
Hey, I'll tell you one thing, man. Within that 2-year period Michael was out, we saw a lot of Game 7s too. It was like Jordan was 5, 6. We out a lot of Game 7. The finals went in Game 7. Phoenix and Rockets win Game 7. The Knicks and Indiana win Game 7. The Knicks and the Bulls in the series prior went to Game 7. It was like, damn, man, like I guess Jordan really was the key to everything. But 3 more, and now I'll let you go, Espo. When Jordan's gone, there's Ewing, there's Reggie Miller, there's Barkley. Does Barkley stand out as the guy that you feel like, man, while Jordan's gone, I'm still shocked and surprised Barkley did not get one ring during Jordan's hiatus. Or do you think it's Pat Ewing or Reggie Miller or somebody else?
I think they're all kind of in the same boat there. I think Ewing, Barkley, both are the guys you look at and go, they probably should have owned that time. Now, Barkley just there were some injury issues, but I don't think he took it as serious as he did in that 92-93 year, in those remaining years. And if he did, we may be talking about a different story with that group, because it's just he didn't have that killer instinct like Jordan did, right? I mean, Jordan, as we saw in The Last Dance, I mean, yeah, he went hard at everything he did, but he was locked in. He wanted to win. And I think Barkley, it'd be nice to win. Jordan, it was a way of life. And I think Ewing was kind of that same way with the Barkley thing. It would be nice to win, but that's not what my whole life is defined by. And I think that's the difference. I mean, that's what's missing. It's why Kobe was so great as well, is because he had that I have to win to validate this about myself. I don't think Barkley ever had that, and I think that's why you wind up not seeing it. I think Reggie Miller probably had it, but probably didn't have enough of the skills to be the guy in the league. But Barkley, Ewing, they probably should have been the ones that capitalized. Instead, Olajuwon and that group did, and Olajuwon had a hell of a run in those 2 years as well.
So what goes up must come down, Espo. So Charles Barkley goes to Houston at the end of '96. The Suns make the playoffs again. They lose in the first round to San Antonio. Let me pull this up. So '96, they get rid of Barkley.
They deal Barkley. They get Mark Bryant, Robert Horry, Sam Cassell, and one other person.
Chucky Brown.
Chucky Brown. Chucky Brown.
You see who won that trade.
Yeah. Well, and the wheels completely fall off too, because early in that tenure, Robert Horry winds up throwing a towel in Danny Ainge's face, who's the coach, which winds up costing him any time in Phoenix. They wind up dealing him to bring Ced Ceballos back. They trade Horry to the Lakers. Sam Cassell never winds up really living up to expectations in Phoenix. They deal him off. And obviously Mark Bryant and Chucky Brown are Mark Bryant and Chucky Brown. No knock on them, but they're bench guys. They were filler in that trade. So as much as the Suns kind of stuck it to the Sixers in getting Barkley, they take it themselves when they make this deal with the Rockets to get Barkley out of town, because his welcome had worn out, and it's unfortunate, because Robert Horry, everywhere he goes except for Phoenix, they win a title. In Phoenix, he becomes problematic, and he's hardly here at all. And the Suns wind up never really recapturing what they had with Barkley until that 7 seconds or less group comes in 2004. So there's a gap from 96 to 2004 where the Suns are good, not great, and then they wind up getting back to elite status with Nash and that team.
So as a fan, before I let Dennis go, how interested are you in seeing Barkley as a Rocket? Obviously they beat him twice in the playoffs. Olajuwon's still there. Drexler is still there. And they try to pull off this, I guess, one of the modern day big threes. I know they were a little older. But how interested were you in seeing Barkley, Olajuwon, Drexler? Man, this sounds pretty, on paper, it looks pretty good. Were you rooting for him to go on and win in Houston, or no?
No, he kind of he kind of burned some bridges on his way out. And you know, I'm a little old school. I was fan of team, not player. In the end, you wind up you know, staying loyal to the team. So I had no interest in seeing Charles Barkley win a title or succeed in Houston, especially after what the Rockets had done in '94 and '95 to the Suns. So it was just, I had no interest. I had grown up a huge Barkley fan, obviously, and that was the point where it was like, the Barkley stuff goes in a box. I'm not looking at that. I'm no longer rooting for this guy. And it took years and years for that to heal. You know, you wind up that hurt until well after his retirement.
So Denny, when Barkley goes to Houston, were you more like, I don't mind seeing Barkley win a ring, or were you more like, I don't care, or what were you thinking back then?
I have problems with players leaving their teams from time to time. You know, so when I saw Charles go to, you know, let me back up. When I saw Pippen leave the Bulls to go to Houston, I was like, ew. When I saw Patrick go to Seattle, ugh.
Oh, terrible.
When I saw Barkley go to Houston, I was like, I see what you're doing. You're trying to get a ring. I see what you're doing. Even
Pippen in Houston.
That was the objective. And then after that, it just became John Stockton. After that, it just became a normal occurrence. So you saw Karl Malone, you saw, you know, Gary Payton go to the Lakers. So, but kiss of death, baby. And even then, Charles Barkley ran out. He ran out to challenge that.
He didn't jump. He didn't jump. He was like this.
Nah, he didn't. But it was. You don't want to foul the guy, so I understood. I understood the concept of, let me just run out. Like, if I watch this play again. All right, let's slow it down. Randy, bring it back. Randy, bring it back.
I got you.
Bring it back to where they line up. Bring it back. Do you see the problem is right here? Bring it back to where they line up. So when they line up, who is defending? Okay, stop it right there. So who is the guard defending John Stockton?
Hey man, this ain't no high definition like now. So
is that Drexler?
I don't think so. It may be, but Karl Malone is a beautiful moving screen. That's Drexler. That's a beautiful moving screen, bro.
He's moving a lot though.
Oh my God, my guy. That is a beautiful, and look where John Stockton's shooting from. So you have to understand, he's deep. He's deep. And John Stockton's not a three-point shooter like that.
No, he's not.
Yeah, look, Charles is like, let me just run out at him. He didn't leave him alone. He's like, let me run out at him. And then, bang, kiss the babies.
Yeah. You know what that was Logo Stockton.
That was Logo Stockton. 100%. Karl Malone kissed John Stockton's forehead. Well, I mean, they both are great, but together because they're duos. But you know that sent them to the final. But even then, I don't blame that on Clyde. I blame that on Karl Malone's big movement, screaming butt.
And you know what?
Was the 90s.
It was.
Oh yeah, you know if that was Jordan, they'd have called him moving screen, baby. True. You know that was Kobe, they'd have called him moving screen, baby. So you know, I mean, and that's Clyde Drexler. It's not like it's a nobody. You feel me? Like it's Clyde Drexler. But back to the point. The point is, you know, he had a chance. He had a chance in Phoenix. Charles Barkley. He had a chance in Houston, and I just don't like seeing guys leave, especially when they put a lot of hard work into their teams. I just don't like seeing guys leave. Rex Chapman, woo! Boys and girls,
Google him. Craziest shots ever.
Google him, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Before there was a Jason Williams, white chocolate. Before there was Sam Jacobson, Toby Bailey. You got now, who else you got out there now? You got before all these guys, there was Rex Chapman. And Rex Chapman was tough. He was not to be messed with until he saw Jordan, and then that was just a
your man is he's about to run out of bounds.
One leg.
The other side.
He gave you the dirt he gave you the dirt before the dirt.
And just heaved it.
He gave you the dirt before the dirt.
what people forget in this play too is the pass from Jason Kidd is unbelievable. He's the one that throws it in, and he throws it just where Chapman can get it, and just enough space. Like this whole play is nuts, and this roster is too. You got Kevin Johnson, you've got Jason Kidd on the roster. I'm pretty sure Steve Nash is on the bench because they had drafted him. Like it's crazy the amount of talent they had on this roster. Unfortunately, it was all guards.
Yeah, Jason Kidd was Jason Kidd.
Yeah,
Jason Kidd did Jason Kidd. You know, there's not too many plays that, you know, and I speak to Randy all the time. I'm like, there are guys that can pass and there are guys that can pass.
Yeah,
you know, you get a catch at the feet. It's one thing. You get a catch in your shooting pocket. Something different.
So I'm gonna get to my final point because we're at the end of the decade. You see, Barkley goes to Houston. Phoenix is trying to be successful in the playoffs. We saw both crazy shots in the same playoff year. Phoenix loses to Seattle, of all teams, in the first round. You mentioned Jason Kidd, so he got there. How did he get there? It was a deal. Phoenix sent Michael Finley, Sam Cassell, AC Green, and a 98 second round pick, which became Greg Buckner, to Dallas for Jason Kidd, Tony Dumas, and Lauren Meyer. And Espo mentioned Steve Nash is on the roster. Yeah, cool. So now he goes to the Mavericks for Pat Garrity, Martin Merced, Bubba Wells, and a 1999 first round pick, which becomes the Matrix, Shaw Marion.
Yep, that and the irony is, so you trade Nash for the pick that becomes Marion. Marion's there, Nash comes back, and then you got 7 seconds or less that starts. In part because they trade Nash originally. Like it's crazy, and they wind up dealing Kidd because of an alleged domestic issue, which you know, it was Jerry Colangelo, the owner of the team, had like a no tolerance policy for anything when it came to legal stuff. So they ship him out and they bring in Stephon Marbury, who winds up being the guy that they trade out to get cap space to sign Nash. Like it's crazy how it all unfolds, and it leads to the next great Suns team with it. But man, there were some lean years in there as well. There's some couple bad years in there. Marbury never really gets it going in Phoenix. They have one playoff run against the Spurs. It's not great, but then 7 seconds or less happens, and we all know how amazing that turns into. But the probably the best Jason Kidd moment in Phoenix is him dyeing his hair platinum blonde for the second round against the Lakers. Like that's the best Jason Kidd moment in a Phoenix Suns uniform, and it has nothing to do with basketball.
I recall that they made the second round. I think Penny Hardaway was there.
Yep,
it was a weird roster, but can I forget also Barkley? I think he's retiring in 99, 2000. Played his final game in Philadelphia, I think, of all places, as a Rocket. So it just, you kind of get this story ending like a good marriage with Phoenix and Barkley. Doesn't go well. They try to get a title. He goes to Houston, and the Suns try to progress without him. And they end the decade with Barkley ending his career. I don't think he played a game in the 2000s, and the Suns are trying to revamp what they had in the early 90s. You mentioned Nash in the 7 seconds or less. That forms in the 05-06, 04-05 season. Nash becomes a 2-time MVP, and they dominate the remainder of the decade. And then now, if you want to, fast forward to now, they're looking to make the playoffs for the first time since 2010. Espo?
Yep. Correct. And when they made the Western Conference Finals against the Lakers in 2010, one of Nash's final playoff run in Phoenix. So yeah, thank you for kind of skimming over that decade of being the laughing stock of the NBA. So thank you.
Hey, listen. I've been a Knicks fan, bro. It cannot be worse than us, man. We've made terrible trades, coaches acquisitions, free agent signings. We've since I've been a fan, They've had like 5 playoff appearances. They won 1 series since 2001. Would turning the tide a little bit nowadays. But listen, Phoenix has won more recently than the Knicks. I hope that one day we can be like y'all and be like more consistent. We're playoff bound every year, trying to win a championship. But it can't be. You cannot be more of a laughing stock than the Knicks as they were previously.
Yeah, it was pretty close here, but at least most Knicks fans live in the city, or at least are close to the city, so they have that going for them. We don't really have that out in Phoenix.
So Denny, any final thoughts on this episode, Sir Charles and the 90s Suns? How would you wrap it up in a bow? If, for those who never heard of Barkley, never seen these games, and they say, hey, talk about the 90s Suns and Barkley as a Sun, how would you describe that time frame?
That team was the precursor to 7 Seconds or Less. Mm-hmm. That team was, I mean, obviously you have a couple of others with your Run TMC. So there were a couple of teams that you could say that, have a debate, but that was Run TMC's 3 guys. You're talking about 5 to 6 guys fully that just like to run and go, and that's what we saw. We saw scores of 100 points, 110 points, and guys, teams were scoring 75. So it was the early days, and you saw a guy who wasn't supposed to be as good as he was, and he maximized everything, all his resources that he could possibly bring to the table. So if you want to see a guy who works hard and is out of position, basically he's not supposed to play the position he's in, and he's dominating, watch Charles Barkley.
Espo, any final words on that era for you as a fan, and think about it in retrospect, that 90s Suns era with Charles Barkley?
Yeah, I think we've all been in that relationship where one or both people goes, you know what, I think I could probably do a little bit better. I'm gonna get out of this because I want to try to upgrade, right? I feel like that's why the Suns and Barkley came to an end, and they both probably would have been just better staying together because you weren't upgrading. You didn't get that. You didn't get that upgrade that you were hoping for, even though things looked better on the other side. And I always wonder if he doesn't kind of force his way out of Phoenix, do they have one more run into them? Do they find a way to get back to those finals and try to recapture some of that earlier magic? They don't. Suns struggle, and we know in the end the Suns are still looking for that title. Barkley never got his, and I'm not. Hopefully this new era of Suns basketball leads to a championship. But 30 plus years of being a fan, I'm not holding my breath because I'm pretty sure I'll suffocate. So
I got a 2-part final question. I'll let you go. In that 7 Seconds or Less era, what year you felt was the best Suns team within that time frame?
04-05, that first year with Joe Johnson and Quentin Richardson, probably the most talented, deepest of the group. The year, I think it's 06-07, where Amari and Boris Dio come off the bench when Ori checks Nash into the scorers table. That's the one that they probably should have won the title.
Okay, so now break it. There's a question behind this: 05 or 07 Suns? Who you got?
I'm going to go 05 was the better all-around team.
Okay, now the final question. Here we go. 7-game series. 05 Phoenix Suns, 93 Phoenix Suns. Who you got?
93. Barkley is unbelievable. That the guy that would have made it tough for that 93 team is Sean Marion. He was just such a different beast. And if Marion played now, he would have been a guy that got a hell of a lot more respect than he did in that 7 Seconds or Less group. But I think he would have been the one guy that would have given 92-93 team a run for its money. But KJ Nash, KJ unbelievably defensively. I think he takes it to Nash on the offensive end of the floor. I feel like that 92-93 team wins in Game 7.
Denny Blanco,
Yeah, no.
05 Suns, 93 Suns, 7-game series. Who you got?
No, 93 Suns is giving them work. It's giving them work. You know, you're gonna have to try to outscore. So what they're gonna? So you talking about what? Amari's their center. 05?
Correct.
Right? Yeah, 05. Amari. You putting Amari on Barkley? Barbecue chicken. Delicious. Barbecue chicken for him. Okay. You mentioned KJ. You know, KJ doing the work on Steve. Steve is not a great defensive player. KJ going back and forth on him. Barbecue chicken. Okay, barbecue chicken. And then you know, just from those two alone, I mean, Dan Marley will run around with your Joe Johnson or your Matrixes. We'll put Thunder Dan on him, you know, one of those two. And then that's it. Game over. Charles Barkley's going to get at least 2 or 3 guys on your team in foul trouble. And then from there, it's game over.
And Richard Dumas, too, that gets forgotten in that 92-93. If he's running with that 05 team, if they're pushing the pace, Richard Dumas has an incredible series too.
And that's another thing with Richard Dumas. A lot of the times players, we forget players that were actually good. We forget players that were actually had the tools and could have been something, but substance abuse comes into play. Richard Dumas, kids, he had all the tools, and he was, I think, a rookie starting in the finals.
Correct.
Starting. He had 6'7", long, could shoot, defend, could rebound. He had everything. And I think I saw a video of him speaking about it, and, you know, he looks good now, and but, you know, he slipped through the cracks, so.
Espo, I promise you, final question. I just remembered it. Oh, I forgot it.
He's lying. We have 4 more questions.
That 94 run in the playoffs.
Yes.
Barkley gets 56 against the Warriors in round 1. Do you feel? Go ahead.
Unbelievable. One of the all-time great playoff performances.
Do you feel that game against the Warriors in 94, 56 points is Barkley's greatest game as a member of the Phoenix Suns? And if not, which one is it?
It's that, or it's that Game 7 against Seattle that we talked about, the 44-24. It's one of those two, because there's not as much on the line in that first round series against the Warriors, but Game 7, Western Conference Finals, punching your ticket to the finals for the first time, that's a pretty tough one to beat. I think that edges out the 56 points.
So Game 7 Sonics was Barkley's greatest game as a member of the Suns.
Yes.
Yeah, I give you that. I mean, Weber did dunk on Barkley though.
I mean,
that was about behind the back. Like, oh shit! But then Barkley got 56 in the sweep. So
welcome to the party.
Espo, man, this has been fun, man. I thank you, man. This has been great. Greatly appreciate you coming on, spending over an hour and a half with us.
Man,
don't want to take too much time away from you and your family, but people can follow you on Twitter at Espo. They can follow you on Instagram at espo.digital. They can follow Denny Blanco. I am Denny Blanco on both Instagram and Twitter. Follow me at Randy J. Cruz, Rendy, the letter J, CRUZ on both Instagram and Twitter. On a brand new episode of the Retro Room podcast here on the Ball is Life Podcast Network, which you can find on Apple, SoundCloud, Spotify, and the full video on YouTube. Espo, my man, thank you, and I greatly appreciate it.
Anytime. I really enjoyed it. Thanks, guys.
All right, take it easy.
Later.